I've heard Donald Trump say stupid things on air. I've heard him say anti-democratic things on air. I have heard him say incriminating things on air. But here, he does all three at once.
Whoever heard you get indicted for interfering with a presidential election where you have every right to do it? You get indicted and your poll numbers go up. When people get indicted, your poll numbers go down. We have the enemy outside, which would be the very standard countries, and we have the enemy from within. We have some very sick people from within. I think that the people that go around indicting their political opponent, especially when their political opponent didn't want to do it to them, I could have done it so easy.
Oh, nothing, just Donald Trump admitting that he did indeed interfere with a presidential election. So that we're clear, Trump is still being prosecuted for the exact crimes that he is so casually confessing to here. And if you think that Jack Smith and his prosecutorial team aren't paying attention, then you don't know Jack Smith. There's also this tendency by Donald Trump to think that if he just admits to crimes out in the open, that somehow makes it less criminal. And so he'll say that he tried to get Brad Raffensperger to add 11,780 votes in Georgia, but couch it in this idea that the call was perfect and so it was all totally fine. And the strategy here is actually pretty insidious. It is to make this all seem fine by virtue of discussing it so casually, so openly. And that if we all see it and think, well, if it was really a crime, then surely he wouldn't be so quick to discuss it out in the open, and so it must be totally fine. It is just bargain basement level manipulation by someone who has a lifetime of experience in manipulating people. And to be clear, for most of Donald Trump's base, it's worked. They've fallen for it. And Trump has zero qualms about misleading the very people who trust him most because he has outright disdain for his own supporters and feels completely fine exploiting them and lying to them and manipulating them because it is a relationship not built on any semblance of trust, but rather on servicing himself and his own lies. I've said this line before and I'll say it again. Donald Trump and Republicans may claim to hate the Democrats, but they don't hate anyone nearly as much as they hate their own supporters. Also, consider what he's actually saying, that what he was trying to do was totally fine by trying to get Mike Pence to unilaterally anoint him the winner of an election that he lost. In that case, is it okay if Kamala Harris, as the current vice president, does the same thing? If she anoints herself the winner of the 2024 election, because apparently vice presidents have the power now to simply choose who they want to win so long as that candidate just repeats the refrain that there was fraud, even if there's no evidence of that fraud? If Trump is really saying that the VP should have the power to choose the winner of the election, I'd love to hear what Kamala Harris thinks about her newfound power to make herself the next president of the United States, regardless of those pesky little details like, the votes. And on that point of Mike Pence, Donald Trump actually took the opportunity to pretend that he's the one looking out for Pence.
But I agreed to all these things that I normally wouldn't agree to. Now they have Kamala, who they say has many deficiencies, but she's a nasty person. The way she treated Mike Pence was horrible. The way she treats people is horrible. But the way she treated Justice Kavanaugh during that hearing, in the history of Congress, nobody's been treated that way.
Ah, yes, it's Kamala who has mistreated Mike Pence, and Donald Trump who's out there defending his honor, and definitely not the other way around. Definitely wasn't Trump who sicked a mob to try and assassinate Mike Pence for not unilaterally rewriting the US Constitution in blind deference to the losing presidential candidate. No, that couldn't possibly be it, and we should just take Donald Trump's word for it. If you needed the actual truth about Donald Trump's relationship with Pence as the result of January 6th, consider the fact that for the first time in U.S. history, a president's own vice president refused to endorse him in the upcoming election.
Between me and my former running mate, I cannot endorse President Trump's continuing assertion that I should have set aside my oath to support and defend the Constitution and acted in a way that would have overturned the election in January of 2021.
But I had no right to overturn the election. And then on that day, President Trump asked me to put him over the Constitution. But I chose the Constitution, and I always will. I mean, I really do believe that anyone who puts themselves over the Constitution should never be President of the United States. And anyone who asks someone else to put themselves over the Constitution should never be President of the United States again.
So, I don't know, call me old-fashioned, but I tend to think that when your own vice president doesn't think that you're fit to serve again, that's something that I think merits at least minor attention from voters. Now, going back to the initial clip for a moment, you'll notice that Donald Trump said this.
I think that the people that go around indicting their political opponent, especially when their political opponent didn't want to do it to them, I could have done it so easy.
Especially when their political opponent didn't want to do it to them. What in the revisionist history is this? Lock her up was literally a mainstay at every single Trump rally leading up to the 2016 election. And don't take my word for it, take Trump's.
Tell you what, for what she's done, they should lock her up. She's disgraceful. It's disgraceful.
So crooked Hillary, crooked, you should lock her up, I'll tell you.
I'll tell you something, though, and it's lock them up. You should lock them up. Lock up the Bidens. Lock up Hillary.
Okay, here's one. Just came out. Lock her up is right.
You know what? I've been saying, let's just beat her on November 8th. But you know what? No. You know what? I'm starting to agree with you, I'll tell you.
But sure, Trump didn't want to lock up his political opponent. He's merely the victim of a completely one-sided persecution by a weaponized DOJ. The same DOJ that just prosecuted and convicted Joe Biden's son and Democratic Senator Bob Menendez. And this is Donald Trump, who was convicted on all 34 felony counts by a jury that his own attorneys approved. Yep, that just screams politicized persecution. Got it. And yet, this is Donald Trump's whole shtick. He goes around beating his chest as a strong man and yet frames himself as the victim every single day. And this is the part that I have trouble reconciling. If Republicans are so desperate to prove that they're the alphas, that they're the tough ones, that they're the real leaders, then why do they spend every waking minute feeling sorry for themselves and wallowing in victimhood? Is that tough? Is that strong? Because it seems like beta behavior to me. It seems like these are the people who want nothing more than to be viewed as martyrs and for everyone to feel bad for them. It's actually kind of pathetic. These people shouldn't be in charge. Frankly, they should consider therapy because there's a lot of unresolved stuff happening among Donald Trump and his most vocal supporters. So look, Donald Trump will try and use every tactic he can think of to explain away his criminality, but it's not going to work. It's not going to work on the majority of Americans, and it certainly isn't going to work in the courtroom. At this point, all he's doing, in his desperation to manipulate his supporters into thinking that he's not the criminal that he is handing prosecutors an absolute gift in the form of a public confession. Donald Trump may have fostered a strategy intended to help him win points in the court of public opinion, but the only one that matters is the one where he just hurt himself most. Before you go, just a quick note, if you'd like to see more of my content, which is always free of advertising, sponsorships, and paywalls, please make sure to subscribe to this channel using the subscribe button right here on the screen. And if you'd like to support my work even further, you can grab a copy of my instant #1 New York Times selling book, Shameless, available for sale right now. That link is also on the screen. Thanks so much for watching.